Hello, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, it's been a year since the San Onofre nuclear plant has produced any power and its operators asked permission for a restart. We look at the safety questions and the cost. We also take an in-depth look at the long-running fight over a proposed North County landfill. And the city installs a seal cam at the La Jolla Children's Pool, but questions remain about how to keep swimmers and seals away from each other. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Erwin Jacobs and by
Hello, good evening. Thanks for joining us. It's been 1 year since the San Onofre nuclear generating station was shut down, and it will be months before federal regulators decide when the North County plant will be restarted, if ever. Now, California's Attorney General is getting involved. Kamala Harris says she'll play a role in the investigation into whether ratepayers should pay the multi-million-dollar bill. Tonight, we take an in-depth look at the costs and safety issues. We began with a look back at the past year. The Unit 2 reactor was already offline for maintenance when a small amount of radioactive gas was released in a steam generator in Unit 3. The leak came from a tube carrying radioactive water. Inspectors found hundreds of failing tubes in steam generators installed in 2010 and 2011. By March, inspectors from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission arrived to take a look at the equipment, and power companies began to make backup plans for the summer. Also in March, environmental groups accused the plant's operator of misleading the NRC about the design of the new steam generators. By April, the head of the NRC came to inspect the site.
Built on fault and coastal lines so we can live so well, but earthquake and tsunami create a living hell.
Anti-nuclear protesters rallied in late April, demanding a permanent shutdown. In May, hundreds of damaged tubes were taken out of service, and plant operator Southern California Edison floated the idea of a June restart. It was quickly sunk by the NRC. By June, state regulators announced plans for their own investigation of the problems and the cost. And a July report said San Onofre had more tube problems than any other nuclear plant in the nation. Also in July, the NRC said San Onofre's problems were caused by flawed computer modeling and manufacturing issues, and Edison filed papers saying the plant could be restarted by the end of the year. But a few weeks later, the company announced plans to lay off more than 700 workers, conceding a restart was a long way away. San Diego made it through a long, hot summer without San Onofre and without any major power problems. And in October, Edison submitted a plan to restart one reactor at 70% power. Now, since then, state and federal regulators have held a series of public meetings about the plant's cost and safety. The NRC is expected to decide on the restart plan by the end of May. Amitha Sharma has more now on the safety questions.
While environmental groups push for San Onofre's permanent closure, majority owner Southern California Edison wants to reopen the plant at lower capacity. But is it safe? Joining me to discuss the risks at San Onofre are Murray Jennings, nuclear containment expert and San Diego State professor, and Gary Hedrick with San Clemente Green. Gary, I want to start with you. It is tubeware inside the brand new steam generators that Edison installed back in 2010 and 2011 that led to the tiny radioactive release that then led to the plant's shutdown. Explain what tubeware means.
Well, tubeware is vibrations that were unexpected, and what I'd like to really focus on is the fact that you're saying it was a minor leak, which it was, but it could have been a tube burst, which would have had a cascading effect and could have had a catastrophe like in Japan. I mean, these tubes are dangerous. They're the only barrier between radiation getting into the environment or putting all of us 8.5 million people that live within 50 miles. They're in grave danger.
Murray, how unusual is it to have this kind of tubeware 1 to 2 years after installation?
Well, it's very unusual. You do expect tubeware over the life of the steam generator, but that should be 20 to 25 years. So this was very unexpected, and it is very unusual.
Now, I want to say that we did ask Southern California Edison, majority owner of San Onofre, as well as San Diego Gas and Electric, minority owner of San Onofre, to come on the program. They declined. Gary, Edison wants to run or reopen San Onofre's Unit 2 and run it at 70% capacity. Edison did release a statement. They said that Southern California Edison's international team of experts conducted more than 170,000 inspections to understand and address the tubeware problem, and confirmed the corrective actions we have taken to solve the tubeware problem. This work included 3 independent assessments of tubeware issues. What evidence have you seen that running the plant at reduced capacity is safe?
Well, the only evidence I've seen is that it's not safe, because if they are relying on the same people who got us into this problem in the first place, then why would we trust them now at 70% or 30%?
So what do you want to see the NRC do? Are they going to rely on those inspections? What kind of inspections are they going to do on their own?
We should not restart those generators, because if they restart and we have a ruptured tube instead of a pinhole leak, it could be a catastrophe. So we want them to not restart no matter what. There's just no reason to. And the only way we'll feel comfortable if they have adjudicated evidentiary hearing that's determined by a judge, not the NRC, because they failed us in the past and there's no reason to trust them now.
I do want to talk to you about that hearing, but Murray, I want to ask you, do you feel that the plant is capable of reopening at some point? Do you trust these 170,000 inspections?
I actually do.
Why?
Well, because having been an engineer at San Onofre for 20 years, but I've had heat exchangers which are like steam generators, where the same issues have occurred, and this is exactly what we did, was test the tubes and do inspections, and then change the parameters under which the heat exchanger, or in this case the steam generator, will operate at. And 70% power is a reasonable place to go.
Murray, Southern California Edison has the highest number of safety complaints of any nuclear plant in the country. At the same time, last spring, employees at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the watchdog in this case, complained that they were being discouraged from bringing safety complaints forward on nuclear plants. Against this backdrop, can the public have faith in any statements put forth by Edison and the NRC when it comes to safety at San Onofre?
Yes, they can. One of the things we don't mention is the requirements on engineers. And under the federal guidelines, engineers can be held criminally liable for anything they say. And if they do make false statements, they can go to jail. So from that standpoint, there is a lot in place to ensure that engineers tell the truth and talk correctly and do correct assessments and testing.
Gary, very quickly, cities are asking that evidentiary hearings be put on. What would they look like?
Well, it's more like a trial. There's cross-examination under oath, and it's outside experts are able to give testimony. So we have a much broader view of the decision that's made, and we'd have a better comfort level knowing they went through that process. But I'd like to go back and just say about these engineers and things, haven't we learned anything from Fukushima? That we trusted the engineers there too, but we're not going to trust them here.
We've got to close it there. Gary Hedrick, Murray Janix, thank you so much for coming on the program today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
In a few minutes, we'll continue our look at the one-year anniversary of the San Onofre shutdown, examining the costs and who will pick up the tab. 15 red light cameras around San Diego will be turned off tomorrow, at least temporarily. Today is the last day of the city's contract with the camera company. Tomorrow, Mayor Bob Filner will announce whether it's being renewed. Filner has said he's opposed to the red light camera program, especially the $490 fine set by state law. The mayor unveiled a new seal cam at the children's pool in La Jolla and called for better enforcement to keep swimmers away from seals. There weren't many seals on the beach during today's news conference. The site's been a battleground for animal rights activists and advocates for beach access.
So yes, this beach is for human beings, but we are better when we respect the seals. It makes your heart incredibly full that we can, as even in an urban environment, experience this ecological miracle.
A conservation group paid for the seal cam. The live stream will be on the mayor's website, sandiego.gov/mayor. 14 employees of the USS Midway Museum downtown have been fired after money from recycling scrap metal went missing. The museum says scrap metal was created when parts of the historic ship were demolished to make way for new displays. The losses may have totaled hundreds of thousands of dollars over several years. The Midway hosts up to 1 million visitors in San Diego a year. It may become easier for San Diego restaurants to offer outdoor dining. 3 city council members want to overhaul the rules for creating outdoor eating areas. Right now, they say the process is lengthy, unpredictable, and expensive.
We at one point was quoted at $15,000 just to expand 112 square feet of just patio.
That quote was just for the permits, not for construction. Proposed changes to city codes go before the Planning Commission next month. An update on a story we brought you last night. The 7th Project Homeless Connect served a record number. The annual event matches homeless people with social and health services. It served 1,150 people yesterday at Golden Hall. That's about a 43% increase from 2 years ago. The Housing Commission says 550 volunteers showed up to help out. The woman who's led the San Diego Blood Bank for 12 years is stepping down. Ramona Walker has been the Blood Bank's CEO since 2001. Since that time, annual donations have gone up 30%. And the blood banks moved into a new state-of-the-art facility. Well, it's not unusual to see billboards with religious messages around San Diego, but a new billboard along Highway 94 has a very different message. It promotes atheism as a personal relationship with reality. End quote. The San Diego Coalition of Reason spent $4,000 on the ad. The group says they want to tell people what atheist really means and says most of the response so far to the sign has been positive. Tonight, the Federal Army Corps of Engineers is holding a meeting in Escondido to gauge public opinion on plans to build a new landfill in Gregory Canyon. The debate over this dump has gone on for 20 years now. And KPBS reporter Allison St. John says the private company wanting to build the landfill has yet to bury the opposition.
Nancy Chase is with Gregory Canyon Limited, the company that has invested almost $67 million so far to get a new landfill opened in North County.
We get calls all the time saying, what are your hours? When can I bring my trash? If you study, voter surveys, many people who have voted on this twice think it's already done.
Gregory Canyon won voter support in 1994 and again in 2004, but the landfill still does not have all its permits. Chase will speak at the Army Corps of Engineers meeting to consider its environmental impact.
Basically to reiterate what we've said for 20 years, that this is the most environmentally sound landfill that will ever be developed, that it's a needed piece of infrastructure, privately funded, and will serve the citizens of North San Diego County on a more environmentally sound and safe and less expensive way to get rid of their trash.
So this is the site of the proposed Gregory Canyon landfill. The plan is to take 1 million tons of trash every year for 30 years and put it in this canyon right next to Gregory Mountain.
This is Gregory Mountain, what the Luiseno people call Chocla, and the entire mountain from top to bottom is sacred.
Shasta Gon works for the Paula Band, which spent $6 million to try to stop the project when it was on the ballot.
It is a cultural and an environmental issue. For tribes, it's hard to separate the two. We're on the Paula Reservation, and Paula is the Luiseno word for water. Water is sacred to the tribe. Water is sacred to all people because it's necessary for life.
Water is also the key issue for the Army Corps because it monitors U.S. waters. Attorney Everett Delano represents the environmental group Riverwatch.
There will be over 400,000 gallons per year of leachate, as well as gases. Those are the pollutants that come off of landfills. Easily, the potential is there for them to threaten the aquifers and the drinking waters of literally hundreds of thousands of people.
But Nancy Chase with Gregory Canyon Limited says the landfill is not actually on the aquifer, and in any case, it will have the world's most state-of-the-art landfill liner.
And it's important to note that many landfills are not lined. There are 16 layers here, double the amount of liners that are in any other landfill is noted. Each layer has different protections. Protective cover soil, then geotextiles, various synthetic clay liners, rocks. You can kind of see it, then it gets repeated so that it's a double liner system, what's called a double composite liner system. But it is the belts and suspenders on top of belts and suspenders of liner systems.
However, Ruth Harbour, who lives in Valley Centre on the other side of Gregory Mountain, is not convinced.
I spent 23 years of my life fighting it. That's how it has affected me. The water will be polluted, not in my lifetime, maybe not in my children's lifetime, but eventually it will be, because all liners leak, and water is just irreplaceable. It's more important than trash.
Environmental attorney Everett Delano argues that new technology and new policies are making landfills obsolete.
Our diversion, our ability to take things that used to be trash and turning them into other things, reduce, reuse, recycle, is working. So I don't think that San Diego County really needs a landfill in the immediate future or even in the more distant future.
Delano says there's no guarantee the landfill would be used for San Diego's trash.
This is not North County's landfill. This is not even San Diego County's landfill. This is probably a landfill for other counties in Southern California.
Can the city of San Diego and North County manage without another landfill? Steve Greeley is Deputy Director of Waste Reduction and Disposal at the city of San Diego. He says the region has enough landfill capacity to last until about 2037, and it's working on alternative ways to deal with waste. He says Gregory Canyon is just one piece of the puzzle in a future where we're rethinking how to deal with our trash.
In our planning forecast, it would add 5 years of regional capacity from 2037 through 2042 if it was permitted, and if its capacity was dedicated to our region and not to other areas. All I can say is it's a close call of whether it's going to be vital or important or irrelevant.
Alison St. John, KPBS News.
1 year after the shutdown of the San Onofre nuclear plant, its operators have run up a huge tab in repairs and testing. Amitha Sharma has a look at the costs to ratepayers.
Ratepayers spent nearly $1 billion last year to run San Onofre, even though it was offline. California regulators promised to look into whether customers should continue to foot the bill. But some say the state watchdog is backing away from that promise. Joining me to talk about ratepayer costs are Truman Burns of the Division of Ratepayer Advocates, which is part of the Public Utilities Commission, and Dawn Kelly, Executive Director of the Utility Consumers Action Network. Truman, I want to start with you. In October, the California Public Utilities Commission announced that it was opening an investigation into whether customers should continue to foot the bill. Now that investigation has been significantly narrowed. What were your expectations back in October, and what are they now?
Well, and back in October, we had hoped the Commission would promptly make it so that the utilities could not collect their costs from ratepayers. The Commission is being very cautious now. They've set up some accounts to keep track of all the costs, and they are going to first address some legal issues before they address what to do about utility rates.
So I want to get to you, Dawn. A key part of this inquiry was indeed supposed to be looking at whether ratepayers should continue to foot the bill. And this week, the Public Utilities Commission releases this memo that's narrowed the investigation significantly. What's your take on that? And before you start, I want to mention that we asked Southern California Edison to come on the program. They declined. Please go ahead.
Thank you. The Commission did, in fact, release a scoping memo, and what that memo does is it tells all the parties the plan for the PUC's, or California Public Utilities Commission's, intent on investigation. They divided it into several phases, and they are looking at costs from 2012, the breakdown going forward. The problem that the Commission, from my perspective, is that they're refusing to look at how did we get here. And all they want to take a look at least from phase one, is the expenditures made for after the shutdown and whether or not the Southern California Edison's actions were reasonable in light of what had happened after the breakdown. What is concerning is that a couple of years ago, the generators at San Onofre had broken down before, and they were replaced. And in that replacement, several decisions were made, and lots of money were spent, up close to $1 billion, to both replace the generators as well as to operate the plant. I think it's appropriate that if the Commission take a look at what promises did Edison make to the Public Utility Commission about installing those generators and running them. Did they say it would only last for 1 or 2 years, or did they say it would last for 20 or 30?
Okay, but on the issue of customer reimbursements, we asked the California Public Utilities Commission about the fact that they've narrowed their investigation now, or they put off the question of refunds, and they released this statement. They said that everything Edison spends on songs is subject to refund regardless of the date. The immediate issue is to clarify whether costs should be refunded now, or does statute say we must wait for Edison's next general rate case. Truman, you know, your colleague Joe Como told commissioners last summer, saying that under the law, they have the ability to start those customer refunds immediately. Do you feel that customer interests have been placed on the back burner?
Well, it does seem like the Commission is being very deliberate about how it wants to address the refunds. We wish it had already been taken up and already dealt with, but they're not doing that. The utilities have basically said you can't make the rate change until Edison's next rate case in 2015, and that's not something we agree with. We think the Commission could change rates immediately if it wished.
Don, you know, we just went through a scorching summer last summer. Edison says that San Onofre is a critical asset to meet California's energy needs. But again, we just went through a scorching summer without the plant. Do you think that we can continue operating without the plant?
We have before. Last summer. We can do it again. Right now, the issue is whether or not the Commission authorizes Edison to spend the money to restart the plant and to put the energy back onto the grid.
Now, the public gets a chance to weigh in on this.
They do. Right now, there's a public participation hearing scheduled for February 21st in Costa Mesa. I would urge all of your viewers who plan on attending. In this particular case, it is the public's participation is important. It is important for the Commission to know where the public stands, whether or not the public believes that another $1 billion should be spent trying to repair a plant that was repaired a couple of years ago for $1 billion.
And we've got to wrap it there. Don Kelly, Truman Burns, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next news hour, the growing divide between Israelis and the Palestinians, plus Shields and Brooks. That's Friday on the PBS NewsHour.
San Diego weather, some clouds will be moving in this weekend. Coastal temperatures will drop into the upper 60s. We'll still be in the 70s for the inland valleys, down to the upper 50s for the mountains, mid-70s out in the desert. There's a particular kind of tree found in a few places in San Diego County, and if you happen to see one fully grown, it can be a startling experience because they are gigantic. What are they, and where did they come from? Ken Kramer shows us a few of the most impressive examples in tonight's About San Diego.
Here's what they look like. This one is in Oceanside, near the corner of California and Soto. Dean House sent us these pictures, and there's a sign on the tree that says it dates from 1932. They are Morton Bay fig trees, and by far the best-known one in San Diego is in Balboa Park, just to the north of the Natural History Museum. It was 123 feet wide when they measured it 15 years ago, and it's grown since then. They come from Queensland in Australia. They like a warm climate and plenty of water. They do bear fruit, and you could eat the figs they produce, but they're pretty much tasteless. What Morton Bay fig trees do is grow. They take their time about it, but they grow. This one in Balboa Park was planted as a 5-gallon tree in 1914 and is now considered one of the champion trees of the state. Part of what makes them so intriguing is the root systems, which are so near to and above the ground, like some kind of botanical octopus. In fact, they need fairly loose soil around them. That's why in 1989, a fence was put up around the one in Balboa Park. So many people used to walk, picnic, and played around it that the soil was getting compacted. So, in San Diego County, where do you think the oldest Morton Bay fig tree is? In the whole state of California, as a matter of fact. Take a look. Here it is in Spring Valley, planted in 1874 at the McCrae Albright Ranch, right near what is now Kenwood Drive and Highway 94. Harrison Albright, who owned the ranch and the tree in 1909, is the architect who designed the Organ Pavilion in Balboa Park and the U.S. Grand Hotel. It's been designated as an historic tree now, and after all these years, it should be. Oh, and one more thing, it's not alone. The current owners, Ron and Janie Ogden, planted a little Morton Bay fig nearby in 2006, still just a baby. As these trees go, it's very small, but it's got a big future ahead, and who knows, may one day be a story itself about San Diego.
And if you want to see more of Ken's stories about San Diego, his half-hour show can be seen tonight and every Thursday night at 8 here on KPBS. And of course, you can find tonight's stories and download the KPBS app all on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.